this interview. It is going to be awesome. And I've known this guy a long time, and we've worked together a long time, and I'm just anxious to hear about his book that he wrote. He's a great writer. He's a great broadcaster. He's got a great voice, and he was in one of the all-time greatest movies ever that made its debut 33 years ago, May 19th. So 2 days ago, it debuted in theaters. We'll talk to John Russell next on the Jason Walker Show. Have you thought about buying a home and just don't know where to begin? Well, when it comes to one of the most important purchases one can make, we understand it can be frustrating and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. Let the Major Mortgage team help you with all your mortgage needs. Major Mortgage means major service, and we would love the opportunity to help you today. Give J.R. McFadden, NMLS number 1246357, a call today at 406-465-1918, or you can visit him at 2001 11th Avenue, Building A, Suite 3 in Helena. Major Mortgage is a division of AMCAP Mortgage, NMLS number 129122, equal housing lender.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call State Farm agent Mike Miller in Helena today. Spring is fast approaching and summer is just around the corner, so now is the time to get those windows tinted at Auto Concepts as the sun starts to heat up. Tinting is the best way to keep the sun out of your little one's eyes driving down the road. Plus, it just looks cool. Auto Concepts is your exclusive 3M dealer for tinting as well as the best clear bras in town. Auto Concepts clear bras will not fade or yellow over time. And don't forget about suspension lifts and power steps for your rig too. Visit AutoConceptsHelena.com or check them out on Facebook. Auto Concepts, the auto enhancement professionals. Yes, it's true that Montana is a long way from the Gulf Coast, but you can bring that Cajun flavor home with a stop at Cafe Zydeco. From po' boys to classic sandwiches, Cafe Zydeco has all the best Cajun in town. Are you in the mood for seafood gumbo or crawfish etouffee? Maybe you're craving jambalaya with some shrimp and grits. Head in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or call ahead for pickup or delivery. Cafe Zydeco will fix all your southern cravings, even on a chilly Montana day. Cafe Zydeco is a proud sponsor of the Jason Walker Show.
I'm done with this.
Thinking about trying something new? The Montana Air National Guard has so many exciting career fields to choose from, many that can open up opportunities in your civilian life. The best part? You'll be getting paid to learn a new trade skill right here at home. What are you waiting for? Let's get you in school and get you paid. Contact Leak Fecto at 406-788-8962.
Store-wide savings are what you'll find when you shop for new home furnishings at Rucker's Furniture. This means tremendous values on Helena's largest in-stock selection of home furnishings. When you shop Rucker's, you'll find store-wide savings on the furniture you want for every room in your home. And you'll also find our selection of Serta iComfort, the most comfortable beds in Helena. 12-month financing is available with approved credit on most purchases over $299. Ask for details. You'll find store-wide savings at Rucker's Furniture, 1010 Dearborn, Helena.
Welcome back to the Jason Walker Show.
It is a Thursday on the Jason Walker Show. We'll be back with Will Rasmussen tomorrow. The famed PRCA rodeo announcer, great friend of the show, and good family. The Rasmussens, we all know them. Flint, Paige, Shelby, Pete, Mayor Pete up in Shodo. So Will will join us tomorrow. Looking forward to that, talking some non-rodeo and what we're going to do. On this day in history still to come. By the way, no shows next week. We're completely off. We were going to be off Monday anyway, and I thought, you know what? Let's take the rest of May off. So we're going to. But we'll be here tomorrow, and then no shows next week. So sorry if that makes you upset. Here in the Major Mortgage Man Cave on a Thursday, and bring in our first guest on the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. He is another longtime friend. I've known this guy a long time. Great broadcaster back in the day. He's a great writer. He obviously speaks better than me. His name is John Russell, and he joins us now on the Jason Walker Show. How are you, my man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a great honor to talk with you, as always, John, because we go way back, I think, to the late 90s? Is that kind of it?
Yeah. It's definitely one of those situations where did all the years go? Things have flown by so quick. But yes, KBOZ here in Bozeman.
Yeah.
We were out there working together. I remember it well.
The KBOZ Ranch, which was, so you did news, Dean Alexander did sports, and Dave Vischer, Roger Nelson. I mean, it was just a great, Mark Allen, great environment out there. It was a lot of fun back in the day.
Oh, yeah. And, radio certainly has changed since those days.
Moderately, yeah.
Yeah. I can remember, I don't want to sound like the old guy, the old relative that you invite to dinner, but I can remember the old days when we had to splice tape with the razor blade in order to make good commercials. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, the old days. And then suddenly late 90s, the early part of the 2000s, then we started to get into the computer stuff. Quote unquote, which really made it a lot more difficult. But yeah, it's one of those, you young whippersnappers don't know how easy you have it today compared to what we went through years ago in radio.
That's true. Cutting fingers on the razor blades while you're splicing up phone calls on the night show or news bits or the old cart machines that we had to use. And of course, you were relying on a lot, John, of those overnight guys like myself to record everything, so you'd have stuff to use on your news and / sportscast in the mornings. And if we messed up, boy, we heard about it.
Yeah, you were integral. Let's put it that way. Very important to the news and sports operation out there, and from there, you really took off, my man.
Well,
I'm very impressed with how your career has gone.
Thank you.
Both television, radio, and now here you are on the web.
The only thing I followed you, and TV, radio. The only thing I haven't done is write a book yet.
Oh, okay. Well, get cracking.
Speaking of, we're going to talk about your book here in a second, but you were a part of. Let's see, the movie came out 2 days ago, but 33 years ago. It was an amazing piece of cinematic art in Amazing Grace and Chuck. Stuart Shipley. Does that bring back some memories?
Oh, gosh almighty. Yeah, it certainly does. I'm kind of surprised that you remember it and bringing that up. But, yeah, I got to portray Stuart Shipley. I was a news reporter covering all this aspect of this young boy who decided to quit playing baseball because he was upset with the existence of nuclear weapons. And then the premise was all these athletes, professional athletes across the country and across the world, they did the same thing. They went on strike. So he triggered a strike until such time that the United States and the Soviet Union reached some kind of an accord to lower the tensions and to all but do away with nuclear weapons. It was certainly a very, very interesting experience to be on the set, to see how movies are made. It was, getting ready for your shots or, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It was certainly a case of hurry up and wait before you would actually film the scene. I can honestly say that I did go into the makeup truck before my scenes were shot, and I can honestly say that I sat down right next to Jamie Lee Curtis while having my makeup put on.
I'm showing her picture right now from, I think it's after Amazing Grace dies in the plane crash. I think she's out in the woods by herself, is from the scene I'm looking at, I think. See, and I bring up Amazing Grace and Chuck only because well, it's like I said, between that movie and Rocky IV ended the Cold War. I mean, Reagan had a pretty good part of it, but
Yeah.
I think Rocky IV and Amazing Grace and Chuck just brought an end to all of that. But it reminds me, John, because the world and sports world are shut down right now, and that's what this movie reminded me of. You know, so many years ago, there were no sports. Now, different premise,
Right.
fake stuff versus reality, but it's really kind of eerily similar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the premise of Amazing Grace and Chuck was that so many people were up in arms when this strike by athletes occurred. No basketball. Amazing Grace was a Boston Celtics player in the motion picture. But people were just up in arms because there was no sports, and they wanted something done about it. They wanted to be able to do everything from seeing Boston Celtics play again to football games to even the Little League games that Chuck went on strike from. He was a pitcher for his local Little League team. And they wanted to see an end to it because not only did they want to see professional sports again, but they wanted to see Chuck playing Little League baseball. So, yeah, in many ways, it's definitely kind of like what we have today. People, well, back then, of course, you didn't have ESPN with all the replays.
Right.
But, you know, that's enough of a fix for a lot of people, but it ain't as good as the real thing, as the song would say. People certainly would like to see the sports come back. I see now a lot of discussion about the NCAA, college football here this fall. I think they'll find a way to make that happen.
A lot of money
I really
involved.
do. There is. There's a lot of money involved. Yeah, you bet. And it is, well, with television these days, it is certainly a major important revenue source for so many colleges.
Author and historian John Russell, our guest here, Jason Walker Show. All right, so do you still get royalty checks?
Yes, I do.
Like 31 cents?
Yeah, the last one I got was 3 cents.
Oh, man.
I am not kidding. I still get royalty checks. Back then when this was done, it was kind of interesting. If you were an extra in the movie, they could pay you minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
If you had any speaking part whatsoever, they had to pay you at least, it was about $400 a day
Okay.
back in the 1980s. So that's where I fell in. Because I did have a couple of lines, so technically I got the speaker's part, the speaker's salary, and so forth. An interesting aspect to this was after the motion picture was done and it was out, I was doing my taxes for that year, and my accountant said, you may have a problem here. I says, why? I had to join, in order to be in this movie, I had to join the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh.
Technically, and I know this will send you into hysterics, technically I am still a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Well, you have an IMDb account.
Well, yeah, they initially, you look up John Russell on IMDb, and they'll take you to the John Russell who did all those westerns and was in Pale Rider with Clint Eastwood. And I sent them an email saying, no, the John Russell that was in Amazing Grace and Chuck, that's me, and here's the information. And they changed it, you know?
Yeah. So your birthday, you were born in Kansas City, so they got that right. Well,
Yeah.
around Kansas City area.
Yeah. I grew up in the Kansas City area, little suburb, Raytown.
John Russell joining us here on the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. So, I love that movie. My wife hates it. She doesn't know why it was made, and I'm like, hey, look, I tried out for it. I didn't get a part, but I remember a classmate, little Jimmy Hathaway, has a speaking part in there. Early on, Chuck was thrown into his tire with his sister, and then they head off to the baseball game on their bikes, and Jim Hathaway got to swear, and I can't remember exactly what the swear word was, but we all thought he was cool deal in school because he was like 5th or 6th grade. Yep. So
It was, yeah. Back then in the late 1980s, it was kind of a big deal. But getting back to my tax situation with my accountant, as it turned out, I could not deduct my IRA because with the Screen Actors Guild, I was technically on their pension plan.
Oh, jeez.
So I called the Screen Actors Guild and got a lady there, and I said, "Look, here's the deal." And she says, "Yeah, I understand." I says, "Why don't we just do this? I'll quit the Screen Actors Guild." And she laughed and she said, "Sir, you cannot quit the Screen Actors Guild."
Ooh.
I says, "Well, ma'am, you got to understand something. My movie career in Bozeman, Montana is going absolutely nowhere." And so she just made some adjustments to where I'm not on the Screen Actors Guild pension plan. She make sure the paperwork said that. So got back to my accountant and I was able to deduct my regular IRA.
Well, there you go. So it's like a cult.
Yeah,
you can't leave it.
Royalty checks, 3 cents. I've received a check for 2 cents.
Oh,
it's
man.
not even worth a trip to the bank.
No. Well, you can direct deposit nowadays, I think. So.
Well, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah,
but,
the banks.
Well, when I do, those times I did drop them off at the bank, it gave the tellers a nice little laugh.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Kind of like, what the heck is this?
John Russell, our guest here, Jason Walker Show. All right, so you are, as I said, an author and historian, and you wrote a book, John, came out last year about, everybody always talks about William Daley or Clark and Daley and the big fights they used to have, William Clark and then Daley, but Nelson's story was a big, big part of why Montana is what it is today, and you wrote a book about him.
Yes, Treasure State Tycoon. It's a book that was published by the Montana Historical Society. Yeah, Treasure State Tycoon, Nelson's story, and the making of Montana. Nelson's story, he's one of those guys whose name rings a bell with a lot of people, in particular here in the Bozeman area, because he and his family lived in Bozeman through the last half of the 19th century and then into the early 20th century. But a lot of people just didn't know exactly who he was, and ever since I came here and saw the name Story plastered on, you had Story Street, you had Story Motors, you had the Story Hill, Story Towers. I was finally, who is this guy? So did research for years and years and years and just chipped away at it and found out that he was one of the more prominent capitalists on the American frontier, in particular in Montana. He was a gold miner. He was a cattleman. He drove the first herd of longhorn cattle from Texas up into Montana, into the Yellowstone Valley. He was also a banker, operated a flour mill, owned tons of real estate here, and with his fortune, invested quite heavily in Los Angeles, California, in real estate in Los Angeles, California, where he also did quite well, to say the least. He made quite a fortune down there. As a matter of fact, at 5th and Broadway in downtown Los Angeles, there is a skyscraper there, one of the first built in Los Angeles. It's the Walter P. Story building. That was Nelson Story's son. Nelson helped finance his son's construction of that skyscraper down in Los Angeles. And he was one of those tending his herd over in the Yellowstone Valley. He experienced more than his share of running Indian fights, and he had arguments and what have you with the U.S. cavalry stationed out at Fort Ellis here in Bozeman. He dabbled a little bit in politics, tried to get elected to the U.S. Senate from Montana, but was not able to do so. One of the reasons his name and his reputation was kind of kept under the lid is because of the strong accusations that he was cheating on his annuity contracts with the Crow Nation. In those days, the United States government would take bids to buy foodstuffs that they would give to the Indians on the respective reservations. And it was a tremendous scandal all across the country. A lot of people involved in it. Went all the way up to the Secretary of War, who was forced to resign because of his role in what they called in those days in the Indian ring. But basically what it amounted to, Nelson Story and others would deliver, let's say, 10 kegs of foodstuffs to the reservation. He had an arrangement with the agent, many of them who were also crooked, and he would get paid for 20. Or he would get paid for goods that he never actually delivered. Sometimes he would get paid twice for the same goods that he delivered. Other times, according to the accusations, he would confiscate items that he had already sold to the reservation. He would confiscate them, get them back from his buddy, the agent, and then sell those items, say in Bozeman or Helena or what have you. So he was never convicted. He went before 2 grand juries, and he liked to brag at the conclusion of the first grand jury that it cost him $10,000 in bribes for them to acquit him.
Jeez.
And that's what he did. To put it simply, he was a crook. He has all of the attributes you think of in the quintessential Western hero, but he was also a crook. And there was a lot of that thing going on in Montana and unfortunately all across the western United States, the way the American Indian was treated.
Yeah, for sure. And, we've, John Russell, author and historian, joining us here, Jason Walker. So we're talking about his book, Nelson Story, or Treasure State Tycoon. It's about Nelson Story, who really did a lot for the state of Montana. And I said that, we think about Clark and Daley and the fights that they used to have, but and how dirty, the state capital, was it going to be Anaconda? Was it going to be Helena? I mean, there was a lot of dirtiness going on, and Story was a part of some of that dirtiness in the state of Montana for all those years.
Yeah, once Montana became a state, for some reason, the legislature decided, you'd think logic says, well, we'll just keep the capital here in Helena because that's where the territorial capital was. But for some reason, they decided to have a vote amongst all the people, have a vote and let the people decide where the capital should be. So Bozeman was one of several cities that tossed their hat in the ring, like you were alluding to, as well as Helena and Anaconda. Boulder gave it a shot. Butte was what made an effort at it initially, Great Falls. And they had all these public relations campaigns that Nelson Story played a huge role in order to try to get the state capital in Bozeman. I mean, you look at some of the PR material they printed, they said that Bozeman has to be the state capital because after all, we have the bluest skies, the greenest grass, the whitest picket fences, the prettiest girls, and the healthiest babies. All kinds of handsprings and flip-flops to try to get the state capital. Helena had fun with all the other towns, in particular Bozeman. They like to point out that the wonderful city of Bozeman still had more than its share of, shall we say, hotels for single girls, the joy houses that were still operating over on the north side of town, and Bozeman had more than its share of saloons, so forth and so on. We all know what happened, of course. Helena retained the state capital. As a consolation prize, Bozeman got the Montana College of Mechanical and Agricultural Arts, which today is Montana State University. So arguably, Bozeman got the better end of the deal.
Right. Yeah. Interesting because Big Dorothy's in Helena didn't close till the last century and like in the 70s or 80s. So you talk about houses of ill repute. Bozeman closed a lot earlier than Helena did.
Yeah, I think I think the last ones in Bozeman lasted until almost World War I.
Oh, wow.
And then they finally closed them. Yeah, those days just about every town anywhere you go, not only in the American West, but pretty much anywhere in the country, you would come upon the houses for, as they would say back then, the houses for fallen flowers. From a standpoint, you know, a lot of your decent married women with children, yada, yada, I mean, they kind of turned their nose up at that.
Mhm.
But secretly, they would acknowledge it kept a lot of creeps off the street.
True. Very true.
So anyway, we could discuss the efficacy of hookers in the American West all day long, I suppose. But
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you want to delve into that on a sports show.
Well, we don't have sports to talk about. So speaking of, I mean, that's a different kind of sporting event because
yeah, there you go.
you had the one in Butte for so long, and then you had the one in Helena for so long. But yeah, John Russell joining us. He's the author of Treasure State Tycoon, Nelson's Story, The Making of Montana. You've done a lot of research, not just for Bozeman, but with the state of Montana. And I don't want to ask this question, but I'm going to. What's your favorite story? Not Nelson's story, of course, but about Montana or Bozeman or Helena or whatever that you've ever uncovered and researched?
Well, one that I've looked into a lot, read a lot about, is the Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's Last Stand. I've delved into a lot of subjects, history-wise, that, you know, are based here in Gallatin County. But I have done a lot of looking into the Little Bighorn. And the interesting thing about the Little Bighorn, more books have been written about the Battle of the Little Bighorn than any other military battle in American history. That includes Pearl Harbor, Gettysburg, Valley Forge, you name it. The other interesting thing about the Little Bighorn is no matter how many books you read, the ending is always the same.
Right.
You know, Custer got sued, Siouxed. But yeah, I'd say the Little Bighorn, that's historically wise, that's one of the topics that Montana is known for nationally and internationally. So yeah, I've read a lot about that, studied a lot about that, not as much in recent years as I did many years ago. But that, and also, excuse me, that and also a lot of aspects about history in southwest Montana and Gallatin County, which dovetailed nicely and helped me to do the book on Nelson's story.
John Russell, our guest here in the Mike Miller State Farm Hotline. A couple final quick questions for you, John. But who killed John Bozeman? Was it Tom Covert or was it the Indians?
We will never, ever know for absolute certainty. However, I do discuss this in the book, and I would say it's about a 90% chance it was Tom Covert. John Bozeman, it's interesting the town's named for him because to a lot of people, John Bozeman was a pain in the neck. The people who settled in Bozeman early, John Bozeman, of course, helped to found the town, but a lot of the people who settled here early were from the north. They were Yankees, they were pro-Republican, and they were pro-Lincoln. John Bozeman is a Southern Democrat from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
John Bozeman was also a good-looking guy and therefore could turn the heads of the ladies. So If you had a wife, a daughter, or a sweetheart, you really didn't care much for John Bozeman. He had habit of, he sold a lot of his interests in various business concerns and spent much of his day playing cards in one of the local hotels and sipping whiskey most of the day, and that just didn't sit well with a lot of people. After the Civil War, Yankee veterans certainly didn't like him, and those Confederate veterans who moved west, they didn't like him either. They resented the fact he was not back east serving the Stars and Bars in what they called the War of Northern Aggression, the Civil War. So he had a lot of enemies. He had a lot more enemies than he did friends. But I can't say with 100% certainty that it was Tom Cover, but I would say it's a pretty safe bet.
I had a teacher at Wilson Middle School, and Mrs. Delger was her name, somehow down the line to the Covers, and she thinks that that's who killed him too. But in his, there's also a story that maybe Nelson Story got a guy named Tom Kent to kill him. Is that?
Yeah, I had heard that. I don't think that's true. I don't think Nelson Story had a hand in it, based on my research. He probably knew something was afoot. He probably knew Bozeman was getting set up for this, but he kind of stayed in the background. The theory is Nelson Story was in on it because John Bozeman was a business threat to Nelson Story. And that's just not true. John Bozeman wasn't a business threat. Like I say, he spent most of his time. He might every now and then take the mail over to Virginia City to earn a couple of extra bucks, but for the most part, he was content just kind of lolling around town, and as I mentioned, playing poker, drinking whiskey. And he did have one really good friend here in town, William McKenzie, who was also from Georgia. And later on, after Bozeman's death, McKenzie and Nelson Story worked together on a lot of business deals, a lot of business projects. I don't think that would have ever happened if McKenzie thought Nelson Story had a hand in John Bozeman's murder. That, indeed, is another gray area, where we'll never really know the answer. But if I was to put money on it, I'd be very comfortable in saying Nelson Story did not set this up to kill John Bozeman. He knew something was going to happen, but he stayed out of it. Once Bozeman was killed, remember, the residents around here petitioned the United States government to put a fort out here to protect them from Indians, because Indians were blamed for the killing. And that was one of the small reasons that Fort Ellis ended up near Bozeman. And with Fort Ellis, you had a really good, solid market for all the goods of Bozeman. Farmers, ranchers suddenly had a market because the Army at Fort Ellis had to buy horses and mules. They had to buy foodstuffs, so forth and so on. So it was all kind of a big plot conspiracy just to get the Army to build a fort out here. And John Bozeman's death was one of those minor reasons, one of those minor things that they cited as a good reason to do that.
You and I were discussing this too, John, on Facebook a little bit a couple weeks ago, and this really started the conversation to have you come on to the show here, is Bozeman used to be known as the Queen City. Helena is known by that now, and neither one of us can figure out when that switch happened.
Yeah, I'm really not sure when Helena took that over. In its early days, when Helena was just miners pouring into Last Chance Gulch, it was called the Cracker City. I have no idea why.
Okay.
That might be something worth digging up and researching to find out how it got called the name the Cracker City. Some people think it's because some of the bread that miners would eat, it was stale quite often.
Oh.
It was hard and crispy like a cracker would be, but I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, Bozeman was the Queen City. She was considered the Queen of the Rockies. Such a beautiful town in a beautiful valley with all this agricultural prowess in this area. The Garden of Montana, they would call it. The Egypt of America, the Nile of America,
Wow.
because of the fertility and so forth. But yeah, Queen City was one of her Bozeman's nicknames, and how it ended up in Helena, you got me on that one. If you get a day off, go up to the Montana Historical Society and do a little digging. They might be able to tell you.
I might have to do that because it is very interesting. Of course, you said something about the Garden City in Bozeman, but now that's Missoula. It's like other cities just take the best of Bozeman. I mean, I'm in Helena, so, it took me out of Bozeman too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, but we can say as Bobcat fans that Montana State University used to be Missoula, and we took that away because we are the state university in Bozeman.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The university in Missoula was once known as Montana State University, and then back in the 60s, when they decided to go ahead and let the Bozeman campus become a university, they gave that name here, and the one in Missoula, the University of Montana. So, that's a name we that Bozeman was able to snatch from Missoula.
I could talk history all day long with you, John, and it's such a pleasure to chat with you. You'll have to come back on sometime and just talk more history.
I'll be happy to do that. You just stay in touch, and I'll do the same. And
absolutely.
When you wanna shoot the breeze about the past, let me know. I'll be glad to do it.
I love that. So sometime in the future, we'll talk about the past.
Okay.
During the present. I don't know. John Russell, you can get his book, Treasure State Tycoon. How do they get it from you?
Well, in the Helena area, I do know you can get a copy at the Montana Historical Society Museum Bookstore up there by the state capitol. I know that they do have it. As to other bookstores in the Helena area, I'm not sure. It is in bookstores throughout the state, but exactly which ones I don't know. But the museum bookstore up there, for certain, here in Bozeman, Museum of the Rockies, the History Museum on West Main, and the Country Bookshelf downtown Bozeman. You can get it there. Fantastic.
Well, I look forward to reading it. Treasure State Tycoon, written by good friend John Russell. And, of course, great actor. Should have been nominated for an Academy Award in 1987 with Amazing Grace and Chuck.
After I did Amazing Grace and Chuck, I never got any phone calls from any Hollywood agent. So I figured, well, who was it? Andy Warhol said everybody gets 20 seconds of fame. That was my 20 seconds of fame right there.
There you go.
Grace and Chuck.
Hey, I auditioned. I didn't get a part. So you're a better man than me.
Oh, I don't know, but like I say, it was one and done as far as the movie business goes for me.
Hey, Jamie Lee Curtis.
I've got a face for radio, Jason. You know that.
Yeah, a face for radio and a voice for the newspaper. That's what I've always heard. John, appreciate it. Take care, my friend, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, that sounds good.
That is John Russell, everybody, joining us. Jason Walker Show. Get his book, Treasure State Tycoon. It's all about Nelson's story, the making of Montana, and it's going to be a great read. And I look forward to reading it. I have not yet read it yet, and I definitely will be heading up to get that copy of that book. So appreciate John joining us. You want to talk about history, especially Gallatin County history? Nobody knows it better than John Russell. It is fantastic, picking his mind. And it was always great to work with him as well. All right, quick break. We did that yesterday. On this day in history, the walk-off, presented by Cafe Zydeco. Coming up next. This last segment brought to you by our friends at Ruckers Furniture.
Store-wide savings are what you'll find when you shop for new home furnishings at Ruckers Furniture. This means tremendous values on Helena's largest in-stock selection of home furnishings. When you shop Ruckers, you'll find store-wide savings on the furniture you want for every room in your home. And you'll also find our selection of Serta iComfort, the most comfortable beds in Helena. 12-month financing is available with approved credit on most purchases over $289. Ask for details. You'll find store-wide savings at Ruckers Furniture, 1010 Dearborn, Helena.
Yes, it's true that Montana is a long way from the Gulf Coast, but you can bring that Cajun flavor home with a stop at Cafe Zydeco. From po' boys to classic sandwiches, Cafe Zydeco has all the best Cajun in town. Are you in the mood for seafood gumbo or crawfish etouffee? Maybe you're craving jambalaya with some shrimp and grits. Head in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or call ahead for pickup or delivery. Cafe Zydeco will fix all your southern cravings, even on a chilly Montana day. Cafe Zydeco is a proud sponsor of The Jason Walker Show. Have you thought about buying a home and just don't know where to begin? Well, when it comes to one of the most important purchases one can make, we understand it can be frustrating and confusing, but it doesn't have to be. Let the Major Mortgage team help you with all your mortgage needs. Major Mortgage means major service, and we would love the opportunity to help you today. Give J.R. McFadden, NMLS number 1246357, a call today at 406-465-1918, or you can visit him at 2001 11th Avenue, Building A, Suite 3 in Helena. Major Mortgage is a division of AMCAP Mortgage, NMLS number 129122, equal housing lender.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call State Farm agent Mike Miller in Helena today.
Welcome back to the Jason Walker Show.
Final segment on a Friday. No, it's Thursday. Man. Whew. We're taking next week off. We got to get the brain refreshed here. We'll be back tomorrow. Will Rasmussen will join us. Had a lot of fun talking with John Russell. Great friend. Going back, gosh, to the mid-90s. Back in Bozeman days of radio, man. Great dude. And just a great mind with historical. It's just super cool. So appreciate John joining us. Let's see here. We talked about the Maine loon in trouble for killing a bald eagle out in Maine. And I don't mean loony like loon, like Jeffrey Dahmer, whose birthday was today, by the way. I mean an actual bird stabbed an eagle through the heart, a bald eagle. So now we should ban loons across the country. Ban loons. On this day in history, it is brought to you by our friends at the Motherlode Sports Bar, Casino, and Restaurant. Today is May the 21st. It is National Memo Day. It is National Strawberries and Cream Day, Waitstaff Day, and National American Red Cross Founders Day. 1881, American Red Cross was founded on this date by Clara Barton. So there you go. 1819, first bicycles, then known as Swift Walkers, were introduced in New York City. First time ever in the country. Swift Walkers. 1881, U.S. National Lawn Tennis Association is established in New York City. Also in 1891, Peter Jackson and Jim Corbett would fight for 61 rounds. It would end in a draw. 1966, Muhammad Ali, technical knockout of Henry Cooper in 6 for the heavyweight boxing title. In 1969, after 9,015 at-bats, Hank Aaron, for the first time ever, was lifted for a pinch hitter. Mike Lum. That's a good piece of trivia for you. Mike Lum, the first time to pinch hit for Hank Aaron. 1977, the 102nd Preakness Jean Cruget aboard Seattle Slough would win on the way to the Triple Crown. 1979, Montreal Canadiens would beat the Rangers of New York for the 4th consecutive title for the Canadiens. In 1981, the New York Islanders would go back-to-back. In 1997, Roger Clemens, then with the Blue Jays, beat the Yankees for his 200th victory. And in 2017, Barnum and Bailey Circus performed for the final time at Nassau Coliseum after 146 years. Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. Ringling Brothers, by the way, used to store winter their animals at Ringling. That's how it got its name. But you didn't know that, did you? Now you do. Happy birthday today. Raymond Burr, Perry Mason, the actor. 1923, Ara Parjeesian was born, former Notre Dame coach. And happy birthday to Mr. T, born on this date in 1952. Mr. T. Clubber Lang was born on this date, 1952.
We're almost at the end of the show. What did we learn? And what did he miss? Time for the walk-off.
The walk-off brought to you by our friends at Cafe Zydeco. Make sure you stop by for the best Cajun this side of Louisiana. We will be back tomorrow. But today, big thanks, John Russell, author, historian, great broadcaster. Check out Amazing Grace and Chuck yet. If you've never seen it, just watch it once. It's worth your time. Tomorrow, Will Rasmussen will join us. We'll talk some rodeo, or lack thereof. And get you set for next week. We're off. But tomorrow, back at 4, you'll want to tune in. I'm sure we'll have something to talk about. Baseball tonight over at Kendrick. Senators and the Mavericks of Missoula. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 here on The Jason Walker Show.
The Jason Walker Show is produced by the Jason Walker Media Company. Any reuse, rebroadcast, or retransmission without the express written consent of the Jason Walker Show is strictly prohibited. Just listen, watch, and enjoy.